Top local lead generation. We're here with Mr. Bernie Pawlik of Pawlik Automotive in Vancouver. Bernie's the owner and founder of Pawlik Automotive. They've been voted best auto repair in Vancouver 15 times by their customers. How are you doing today, Bernie?
Really good.
So we're going to talk about struts and specifically a Lexus where you did strut replacement. What's a strut?
Well, it's a good question, and I should clarify that the struts we're talking about are McPherson struts, which are on the vehicle suspension, because the other struts that you will find on a vehicle are the struts that hold up on some cars, up your hood. It holds up your hood and your trunk when you open it. These are a bit of a different item, but we're talking about McPherson struts today. So what a strut is basically it's a suspension component that incorporates one arm of the suspension, the vehicle suspension. It also incorporates the coil spring, and it incorporates a shock absorber. And the reason they use them is it kind of compacts the suspension system. That's the main reason for using it. Several things can be built into one component and installed on the vehicle.
So many vehicles use a McPherson strut or a strut, a suspension strut like this. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, I'd say 30 to 50%, maybe even a little more, of vehicles on the road use a McPherson strut suspension.
So why would people use struts? What are there? Aren't there other suspension systems?
There are, and the sort of very conventional system would be like on a car would be two control arms. So you have an arm on the bottom, an arm on the top, and then ball joints on the ends where the steering knuckle sits, and then that allows when you hit a bump for the wheel to pivot up and down. Then there's a coil spring or some other type, maybe a torsion bar spring that attaches to the body, and then a shock absorber. There's a lot of parts to that suspension system, and some vehicles even have a couple of extra control arms. Some European cars use two control arms at the bottom. It allows very precise steering geometry, but with a strut you can eliminate a lot of these pieces. And so I think manufacturers like it from that point of view. It's a simpler way to do it. They can build one component and stick it all together.
So is this an expensive replacement?
They can be. I mean, like on a typical vehicle with shock absorbers, like an average sort of vehicle, it's probably $200 to $300 per axle to replace the shock absorbers. Whereas with struts, it can often be $700 to over $1,000 per axle to do the strut. So it's a lot more money. Struts are a lot more labor intensive. And I'll put up some pictures here. You can see what the struts. This is the strut on a Lexus that we worked on just recently this week. So this is looking in at the wheel. This is the wheel removed. You can see the brake rotor on the right bottom corner of the picture, and the strut is that black thing that runs from the bottom up. And unfortunately, this picture is not the greatest because it was in a dark area, but the sort of components up above are the coil spring. And if you look at the bottom left corner of the picture, sort of the bottom middle to the left, that's the tie rod end. That's where your steering rack connects to your wheel. So that's what allows your steering wheel to turn and move. Next view here, this shows the strut in the workbench where we take it apart and replace it. Now that round spirally piece, that's the coil spring, so that's what allows your car to bounce up and down. And in the center is the piece that we replaced. That's the shock absorber portion of the strut, and that's the piece that wears out most of the time. Now there are other parts in struts that wear out as well. The upper mounting plate will wear out on a lot of cars, and you'll hear like clunking noises when you hit bumps. There's also bearings that can seize up and cause creaks and noises. So when the strut is replaced, we inspect all these components and replace them if necessary. On some vehicles as well, you can buy a brand name. It's called a quick strut, and what it is it's a complete unit. It's got a new coil spring, it's got the mounting plates, it's got everything. It costs a little more money, but it's less labor intensive, and you end up getting the whole piece replaced, so it doesn't leave anything to go wrong down the road. They're not available for all vehicles, and for Lexus, they're a little more of an exclusive vehicle, so there's not so much available in that department. So for these two Lexus vehicles we actually worked on this week, we had to do the actual just shock absorber portion of the strut.
So how long do they typically last on Lexus versus other cars?
Well, there's a variety. Age of struts really varies. there's two vehicles, and I'll show pictures of them in a minute. The first one in the pictures you saw there, it's off a 1993 ES300. So that's a 22-year-old car at this point, almost 23 years old. Those are the original struts. I can honestly say we've been servicing this car for about 3 years, and they probably needed to be replaced all along. But they weren't really bad like they can be on some vehicles. The other vehicle we did is a 2002 SC430, nice little two-door convertible, hardtop convertible sports coupe that Lexus makes. And this vehicle only had 99,000 kilometers on it, but it is, again, what does that make it, a 13-year-old vehicle. So they do tend to last probably at least 10 years on a Lexus, or most Japanese cars. I have a 2001 Subaru, and I have replaced the front struts, but the rears, I mean, they're still in perfect shape. So they can last a long time, but there are other times where they won't, you won't get so much mileage out of them. They wear out sooner. Typically, Japanese vehicles, I find, and a lot of European vehicles, the struts are better quality than you find in an American car.
So you need some strut work. The people to call is Pawlik Automotive. Check out their website, pawlikautomotive.com, or give them a call to book your appointment, 604-327-7112. Thanks, Bernie.
Thank you, Mark. Talk again soon.